add, Jack Waldron.
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty funny. Thank you.
That's one to you. Just a big pile of stuff.
Yeah, sorry, it's a hefty.
Lots of stuff.
And I know you guys go home and put those in a nice binder you can refer back
I
to.
got a file cabinet.
I know she does.
Mockery.
Since,
No,
since,
I'm
since
shaming
Leanne
them.
does, we don't have
Nobody
to.
has now.
I've got a big file.
So much freaking paper.
Yeah, I keep one too in my office, so if you ever need to reference it.
Does everyone have council's advice on this?
Yeah.
It just wasn't printed out, so I didn't know.
No, because you're not gonna really get into that, but you all got it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
PA 16.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ready? You got, oh, we don't need that guy yet, do we?
No.
Because we're going to go straight in, that's
Yeah.
non-public, yeah. Okay, 5 o'clock on June 24th, I call the select board meeting to order. There is a correction to the agenda. We are going to enter into non-public session under RSA 91A32C, Session 1, and 91A. What did I say?
You said the right
You
thing.
said it right.
Okay, 91A32C, Session 2. That was incorrect on the posted agenda. That is the corrected one, and so I make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32C, Session 1, and A32C, Session 2.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Honest, yes.
We are now in non-public session at 5:01.
Does that mean I have to leave?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, your part doesn't start till 6. 6.
Forward to
Well,
things that are here.
5:30.
Sign that.
Hold on one sec, let me just.
I'm already dead. Yeah, 'cause
Well-
it's all presentations.
You know what we could do is we could discuss, like I can give my admin update.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Jump ahead.
Sure.
We can do recycling proposals too. Well, some people might be diving into that.
That's true.
Yep.
I know, this is what's so hard is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, why don't we
Do.
call the meeting to order and all.
Okay.
Hold on, let me get Zoom on.
Yeah, let's see who that supervise.
Okay, Paul's gonna head over to,
Good.
He's next door.
I think so. Alright, so you can go ahead and call me.
I make a motion to come out of non-public session at 5:39.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Honest, yes.
Roberts, yes.
We are now in public session at 5:39.
And the minutes aren't sealed.
Minutes are not sealed. And so what did we decide to start with?
Well, I guess you could go through the
Oh, yeah.
additions to
Right.
the agenda.
So for a change in additions to the agenda, we have added accounts payable manifest for $92,991.23. And there are additions to the signature file as well. I'm going to say right off the bat that we have a very full agenda tonight, and so we're going to move through it as quickly as we can once we do get started. And we're going to wait until the end of meeting to take public comment. And just try to keep it moving, because we've got a lot to go over. Who's ready?
So why
We
don't
could
can I jump ahead and just go through my admin report, since we're still waiting on our department head to get here, and I'm sure the police chief will be here soon.
And are you Chris Elliott? No. Okay,
No, Tia Gagnon, but he's supposed to be here. I think he thought that it started at 6.
it does.
It
Yeah,
does.
it's okay.
We were
Our
efficient.
non-public sessions ran like quickly, so quicker than expected.
Thank you.
But I'll give my admin reports. So the account balance is $2,651,351. And I've got to just own my own mistake back when we were posting the annual meeting back in March. I knew I had to post the warrant. I knew we had to have the annual report dispersed, but I did not realize that I was supposed to have the MS 636, which is the DRA budget form, posted with the warrant. And realized it when I was following up with the DRA that I didn't have it signed by you guys and posted. So this calls for a procedural defect meeting, which is kind of a much ado about nothing situation, but it's more than anything just a nuisance because we now have to have you folks sign off on a new warrant. It's going to be one warrant article that basically reads as, shall the town vote to ratify the results of the March 2025 annual meeting even though the posting requirements were not met? So that will get posted in the newspaper, same deal around town, and then we have to have kind of a special town meeting where the moderator has to basically allow the town to vote on this warrant article.
It'll be the shortest town meeting ever.
My hope
There was
is,
one
yeah.
before.
Was there?
Yeah, Mel did let me know that this happened, I think when you were your first term?
Yeah.
Okay, so at least we've been through it. And Mel also offered up the townhouse.
Oh,
Yeah, that would be
It'll be a
appropriate.
cozy meeting.
Yep. It's quick.
Yeah, and not
Nobody,
that many
no
people
chairs
show.
were out, everybody
Just make them
stood,
stand.
called the meeting,
Yeah,
Perfect.
voted out.
Yeah.
cool.
I drove by through another town the other day that had a billboard out that said special town meeting, so I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. Seems like this happens. So I'll kind of walk you guys through, when we get there, with basically all the meeting dates, but right now I'm coordinating with the supervisors of the checklist, the moderator, and when I'm gonna get all this posted, but it'll be hopefully within, obviously, July, maybe August.
Okay,
Okay. I also will be taking some vacation time this month, so July 8th I think is a select board meeting that I won't be at, but that for the few days that I'll be out of the office, Keats did offer to cover and run that meeting. Hi Paul, come on in. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
okay.
What else? The office is going well. Michaela's doing great. I'm really impressed. It's been a smooth transition so far. I cannot believe that it's already been almost a month since Elaine retired, but so far so good. Nancy Cavalieri has been an amazing resource. She's our kind of backup accountant go-to person for questions. She knows the systems. MTS also has been super helpful, but Michaela just picks it up really quickly, so far so good. Okay. So unless you have any questions for me, that's it for my report,
Okay,
and then we can move into
yeah,
Paul.
we're gonna go with the department head update, the welfare department with Paul Priestman.
My update is it's been a busy first half of the year. It's been sort of typical activity, nothing sort of unusual except in the volume. Really taken the same approach in terms of sort of evaluating people's needs and assessing the assistance that we were providing. And yet, given that, we've spent out of the $25,000 that's allotted for public assistance, already halfway through the year, we are at 3/4 of that it's expended. And I really can't point to any individual thing, but we should be prepared for
Yeah.
for that eventuality. Like I said, it really hasn't been any sort of one thing. I haven't sort of changed my perspective that's caused this to happen.
Maybe the cold winter.
It really wasn't a high level fuel assistance. It was, yeah, it was sort of, that was sort of, yeah, everything sort of kind of incrementally sort of higher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, folks looking for rental assistance, trying, you know, losing their homes. That's the second part of the, do you have any questions about that? I have sort of some information about some public housing in town that's gonna be shuttered.
No, if you don't think there was any particular part of the assistance that was higher, I mean, you know, it was mostly, we think it was mostly rent or housing.
Yeah, it was
costs?
all of
All
the
of the
things,
above.
you
Just
know,
more
rental
of it.
assistance, cremations, you know, just the whole gamut, everything is just a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Do you know what percentage it all went up roughly?
Percentage,
Of increase, if it all across the board went up 5%?
well, we're at 3/4 of our budget.
Should be.
This time last year, we were probably at 1/4 of the budget.
Yeah,
Well, that's
we
right,
were
yeah, we
under
normally
budget
have
last
50.
year, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it could be, you know, it's such a small sample,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's hard to sort of pin statistically, sort of.
That was gonna be my next question. Do we track the trend statistically to run an analysis year over year?
I don't have enough information. I mean, I have information from last year that I've kept and information from this year on sort of who's received assistance and what it's been for. I don't know that before that there's been sort of any sort of way to sort of tag, you know, payments, because they go to different people and different types. It's hard to sort of say, you know, unless it's a payment to Eversource, which is obviously for electricity.
So we don't have a database or anything in the system that essentially.
Not in the town system. I keep, you know, sort of a little personal database, which sort of helps me sort of manage.
And the database would have to be cognizant of rights to privacy and stuff, so you
Right.
could, I
You
mean,
could even make it
Yeah.
just basic variables of fuel assistance. I'm just curious if there's a trend that you can predict so we can kind of figure out what next year's budget should be.
Again, I think it's such a small sample, and it's just people's situations are so variable that things can happen.
I mean, just anecdotally remembering, last year was, we spent so little
Right.
money that I don't really remember anything about last year, except that
Right.
it wasn't housing. The year before, we were well over budget,
Yeah.
and that was housing.
Yep,
And it just took 2 people
yeah,
to tweak that number out of whack.
Yeah.
The year before it was heating oil.
mm-hmm,
And I think that the year before was heating oil, and in part that was because the people's tri-cap money didn't come through the way they anticipated it to. Whatever that anticipated
I
based
remember
on.
that, yes.
So
that's right.
that's my memory of, it's been different every year, but it has been kind of pooled. A lot of heating, a lot of housing, not much of anything last year, and now just kind of a general increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
There's a pretty large, it's 14 apartment unit, 14 apartment complex over on 16, which houses folks who are receiving assistance, and that is going to be closed. And so-
Woods? Or is it-
Socorro Woods, right. That's gonna close at the end of the year. So I've been sort of assessing folks there, going door to door, talking to folks, trying to evaluate sort of what that impact will be, and trying to kind of divert folks into situations now rather than on New Year's Day when the place closes.
And how many units did you say?
There's 15. You know, 3 or 4 of the folks have already sort of found situations. There's a handful, half a dozen folks who have case managers through Northern Human Services. And so I'm sort of kind of depending on those folks to help those residents find homes. So I'm really focusing on those people that don't have.
Why is it closing?
She's just getting out of business. She closed a place that's called Sonata Housing.
Yeah.
She closed a place up in Conway, she shuttered it.
Oh.
Sort of stopped making repairs, maintenance as long as it's really a terrible, terrible
Yeah.
situation. So that's kind of, I've been spending a lot of time on that,
Yeah.
which has its pluses and its negatives. I'm hopeful but not optimistic about sort of how that's going to play out in the next 6 months.
I wanna say the report, the analysis you did about, TRICAP services,
Yes.
I thought was so helpful, because it's been an ongoing conversation that we've been having publicly and with various folks from TRICAP's involvement. And I appreciated that you took the time to break down your experience with different aspects of the services that they offer. I think it's helpful for us when we have to make budget decisions to have like a kind of a consistent threads of information coming from different sources who are actually either using the resources or supporting people in using those resources.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm a little at loose ends as to sort of how to proceed. I don't really have a sort of a strong sense of what's the next best thing to do in terms of trying to get those resources directed to folks in town. It seems like there are resources, they're just being poorly managed or administered. Yeah, so I'm really don't have a plan right now as to, they don't seem to be provoked by shame or really anything else. They seem to sort of hold steady to that they're doing a great job and everybody appreciates them. So,
Yeah, right.
that's kind of where I'm at there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the extent of my report.
Great.
It's not great news, but
No, that's good. Yeah, thank you for doing what you do.
that's good reward. Good work. It's
Yeah.
usually rewarding and
Yeah,
sometimes not.
all right.
Thank
thanks
you.
for
You're
trying.
welcome.
All right, we're gonna move right on to the police department and staffing, and Leanne will lead the discussion.
So for the past couple of years, I have been working with Chief Littlefield and officially, officially, unofficially, with Donna Ulitz, who is recently retired after a very long stint of service as the guidance counselor at the Brett School, and most recently with Julie Lanoy, who is the new town nurse at TCNA, to look at a model that I've been interested in that's popping up around the country, mostly in major metropolitan areas, and has in the past 4 years, 5 years, 4 years, come to New Hampshire. It's started in Dover and is in 5 different cities in the state. And that is a social work position that is embedded in the police department. Because what we're seeing nationally is that more and more calls to fire and safety, calls for law enforcement, are actually not law enforcement issues, or they might first present as a law enforcement issue, but they're actually predicated on something else, like a mental health issue, a physical health issue, a substance issue. And so the board is very familiar with the fact that we have been, in this kind of holding pattern to hire new law enforcement staff for Tamworth, and we are feeling the pinch of the fact that there's also a national shortage of law enforcement that the state's feeling. We know the statistics, we've been hearing them from Chief Littlefield about the state police being down, the county sheriff being down, like local law enforcement down. There's a lot of competition for a few people. And so I started just kind of thinking outside the box, like what could benefit people from town to have their needs met, while also taking the pressure off the police department, the few staff members we do have, so that they can really focus on law enforcement. And it's kind of perfect that Paul started this conversation from a welfare point of view by sharing that services that are purported to exist in Carroll County are really inefficient, if they're even existing at all. So we have folks who just can't get by or are in crisis, and one thing that they do is they call police or they call fire and rescue. And we've heard this from our fire chief as well, that they have like a huge percentage of their calls are like, I don't remember the term, but it's like an assist, like a social assist more than a medical emergency or a fire emergency. So we have spent a lot of time researching, interviewing people in different departments that have social workers, looking at trends of places that have embedded social workers in police departments to see what the efficacy has been. And we have drafted a job description that we're going to talk really briefly about. And this is not, we're bringing this to the board to share this information. This is not, like, the board doesn't need to say, yes, you may do this, because this is a hiring decision for the police chief to make. The money is in the budget under the full-time line item. That is not a special warrant, so it wasn't raised and appropriated for a law enforcement agent officer. It was raised and appropriated for full-time police department staff. And we've checked this out with our HR person, and it's completely fine. But I do think it's important for the board to understand the benefits to the town that could actually end up in pretty dramatic reduction in calls that our volunteer fire department gets and that our very tiny police department gets, that allows them to do the work that they're actually hired to do. So when you're responding to a call that's a mental health crisis that could have presented as me standing in a hallway of my apartment, screaming at my neighbor and threatening to punch him, that seems like it's a law enforcement issue. It's really not. Once you get there, you find out that it's a mental health issue, but there's no one else to deal with the mental health crisis. So our police chief or our sergeant ends up spending 6 to 8 hour day trying to get that person the help they need in our medical system, and there's almost no help for mental health right around here. So that 8 hours or 6 hours could have been spent, what's our favorite topic in Tamworth? Doing speeding stops, monitoring traffic. It could be spent working on preparing for prosecution for a child sexual assault case. It could be spent doing a lot of things that actually are law enforcement. And in the meantime, once that person is handed off, that townsperson, that taxpayer, they're not really any better off because it's been a Band-Aid situation. They're going to go back to their house a few hours later, and their situation hasn't changed because it's actually not a police officer or a police chief's job to follow up on that kind of call. It would be a social worker's job. And what I want to do is share just a little bit more information with you, and then I'm going to let Dana share a little bit, Chief Littlefield share a little bit of information, and also ask Donna just to share, based on her experience with children in town, the kinds of things that the ways that they're impacted by police intervention in situations, this kind of follow-up with a social worker could actually help. So we're talking about breaking cycles too. But the things I want to share before are just the nuts and bolts before we get to Chief Littlefield and Donna, is that we bring this up a lot, and I'm going to bring it up again, that Central Carroll County is like the second poorest region in the state, and our statistics for food insecurity, for homelessness, for elders in crisis are higher than parts of Coos County, which is the poorest county in the state. we have very few services that are effective, and Tamworth's numbers for poverty indicators are 2, 3, and even 4 times state averages. So we have a beautiful town. We're going to be talking about the natural beauty of it later on in the meeting. We're going to be talking about the recreational possibilities. We have a lot of people who are in crisis, and those crises end up taxing the only services we have for them, which are fire safety and law enforcement. Dover Police Department 4 years ago, 5 years ago, hired their first social worker, and they're up to 4 full-time social workers in just this short time, and 2 20-hour-a-week interns. That social work position has become a hub interacting, even though it's technically housed under the police department, it's a hub that interacts with fire and safety, with their welfare department, with their schools, they've got elder services, they're bigger, obviously they're a city, so they have more departments than we do. They interact with all of those departments, and I did not bring my notebook with me, but the woman who was the first social worker hired was sharing the statistics of call reduction, of people, they work in a very short-term model, and it's showing how people get lifted up out of their circumstance into a better circumstance through this intervention. She has, there are 4 other cities in the state. Concord, I know, also started with 1, and within 3 or 4 years, it's up to 3 or 4 social workers. So it's something that these municipalities have started, and really quickly out of the gate seen such an impact that they have expanded. We're not going to need 4 social workers. We're not going to need that expansion. But their testimony is that it's a system that's effective. And it's effective in reducing costs. It's effective in letting departments focus on what they're supposed to be focusing on. And it elevates the quality of life of the citizens in their community. So, I'm sure I'll think of other things after, but Chief, do you want to dive in?
Sure. Good evening. I'll probably be kind of redundant to what Leanne just said here. For me, the catalyst, she kind of gave a broader review, but the catalyst for me was, I had a call that initially came in as like an assault on a neighbor, but the crux of the whole situation was the subject had a manic episode, a mental health condition that needed to be addressed. The criminal side of it, or that aspect, was sort of mitigated in the few minutes on scene, determined what the course of action would be there. But at the end of the day, that this person wasn't getting the help they needed. So I had reached out to, through Northern Human Services for the Crisis Response Team, which is kind of a new program with the state to be able to bring responders into the community who will sit with people and determine. And sometimes that's without police interaction, like people could call direct and have that response. Well, that day I called, that service wasn't available for our town. In that moment, which led me to figure out how am I going to deal with this situation. And I ended up doing what we call an involuntary emergency admission, and bringing them to which requires a form to be filled out and notarized, and bring them to the hospital where they have a mental health eval, essentially against their will. Not really a great way of fixing that problem, because that ate up my whole day. Travel time, back and forth to the office, to the hospital. The hospital really wasn't pleased to see me bring that person in. At the end of the day, there really wasn't much that they were going to do. Pair them up with the mental health clinician and go from there. It ate up my whole day. I think when I look at what this position in just one realm, if we had that position, I would have done what I would consider a warm handoff. The scene is secure. there's no other issue criminally, we would hand off to the social worker and say, help this person bridge that gap, right? Like get them connected with services, call 988, sit on the phone with them and call 988 and, see what services are available. If it needs to be elevated to do the IEA process, the prayer and complaint form that's required, that social worker could have actually done that as well. And then once that was all done, notarized or JP'd, then I could have done my part, which I still would have to do the transport end of that, but it wouldn't have taken my whole day. One of the things I have to be cognizant of is we have limited staffing, so we kind of have to think outside the box. And while our job, the broad scope of it is community caretaking, the things that we are really tasked with that nobody else can do are the powers of arrest, which includes investigations, as well as motor vehicle stops and enforcement of the laws. So we can't just hire anybody to do that job. And I'm not saying we can just hire anybody for this job either, but the set of criteria is different. And that's why we have such a reduction in law enforcement in the state and nationwide, for many reasons. But the candidacy pool is very low. The quality of applicants is very low. So I need to be able to, and my offices need to focus on that aspect that nobody else can do. If I'm dealing with a mental health emergency or some other social services issue, then that takes away from my time to work on investigations, report writing, traffic stops, and other things like that nobody else can do. So we need to really kind of hone in on that, focus on that. The ultimate goal is really just to continue to bridge that gap between services. If we go out a lot of times, we kind of just say, hey, here's this services offered through Tri-County CAP or offered through Whitehorse or offered through whatever. And we either give them a card or information on it and we kind of walk away from it. And that's the end of it. A couple weeks later, you're back at that same situation. They never made the connection they needed to make. They just didn't bridge that gap. And what we want to do is bridge that gap for them. There's many, I kind of relate to fire. Back years ago, fire service was fight fires and rescues and that such. And that's, that was the whole thing. Well, technology and prevention have grown so much, they're fighting less fires. Instead, 80% of their calls, if not more, are just EMS based. Well, it's kind of like that for us in some ways. The criminal aspect's still there, but we've been dealt with like dealing with the social end of services. So now our call volume has increased just based on the social services aspect. I'm kind of blown away at times with the type of calls that we get, and I think, well, I would never call a police department for that, but where else do they call? They know we're going to pick up the phone, whether it's they call our office, our dispatch, or 911. Somebody's going to answer that phone and give them an answer that they want. And so part of it too is I kind of had to like narrow down my focus on what was most important to us and what we deal a lot with. And it's really youth and families, juvenile issues, and just the disparaging socioeconomic states between some of the families in this town versus others. If you look at the school's free and reduced lunch program, I think, what is it, like 60%?
66%.
It is on free and reduced lunch. So that kind of speaks to the sort of poverty level in the town. And then pair that with the fact that that's the families that we're dealing with outside of the school. And Donna knows this because we've collaborated many times when Donna worked at the school, and still do. So part of what happens is sometimes it gets referred to Division of Children, Youth and Families, DCYF. Sometimes those cases get screened out because they just don't meet the criteria, and they fall in that gap. So like an example might be a runaway from home, a juvenile. And their reason for running away is I just don't like mom and dad's rules. or something of that nature. So they fall in the gap. They screen out of DCYF, they don't get paired with a social worker from DCYF. But it's still a problem that needs to be addressed. And we end up addressing it, or at least having those conversations. That's something that could be paired with the social worker to have, refer them out to services and provide follow-up from that. There's also cases, obviously, that DCYF will pick up, but their caseload is such that they can't keep up with the constant follow-ups that have to happen with these families. So we want to partner kind of with them and go alongside them with a social worker to say, hey, we're going to do the follow-ups to make sure that they're connecting to those services that either you've referred them to or we're referring them to make sure that there's this sort of continuity of care. The end goal is to reduce the amount of times we go back to these homes, reduce recidivism, and so on and so forth. I mean, I just kind of looked at some raw numbers back, starting from January 1st, 2023 to now. And it's like, there's one family that we've had 42 calls for service, involving juveniles. There's another family that's another 30 calls. On the fire side, there's a medical call, there's about 156 calls to one residence. How can we help there? Well, we're not fire. We can send they can make that referral to our social worker and say, look, we keep going to this, is there something we can do? Maybe there isn't, but I think in that situation we can have the social worker connect them with services. Maybe they just don't know that they have, through Medicare or Medicaid, that they have opportunity for a home health aide that would come in and fill that void where the fire department's having to go out all the time. So by helping to facilitate an application or connecting them with whoever needs to be, help them with that situation. So, I mean, that's just a drain on the system that otherwise would really, people just need help in connecting, with the various services. I can tell you from my own experience, I mean, I've referred people to services because that's what I've been sort of trained, like, hey, we have people come into our lobby all the time, although in recent years it seems less and less, but they advocate for their nonprofit group. We're here to help with homelessness, we're here to help with substance abuse, and they give us a stack of cards and we give out those cards and those services go away. What we want to do with a social worker is vet out those services. Who's still in, what's effective, what's not effective. What's local, what's paid for by insurance, what's not paid for by insurance. And be able to just offer that better course of action for these families or people that are in need. But there's just many times where you run into referring out to a service and it's really not what you tell the people. They call and they're like, yeah, we got no help. Nobody picked up the phone. The doors are locked, whatever it might be. And so we really just want to be able to, have a continuity of care and sort of bridge that gap. And I think this would be a great way to do it. I actually think in the next 10 years, you'll see a majority of departments on board with a similar program. And this is just kind of being a little progressive for a smaller agency, but we have to think outside the box. I mean, we think we have an ability to fill this position quicker than we would be able to fill the police officer position.
I'm gonna be just cognizant that we've got a stacked agenda, so Donna, can you just add like quick 2 cents, because I know you've got plenty of 2 senses to add.
I'm gonna look at my notes so I don't go beyond 2 cents.
Okay.
I worked for years with Dana, and I will say that one of the things that I think we were both always often frustrated with is the lack of resources and follow through, and how do we support. So here we have, he's involved with a family, he comes into school, I have the kids, within our school community, but we can't help them. So we have them during the day, he has them on, but where do they go? And so I think this is an opportunity, if I'm speaking to this, you've said almost everything that I was gonna say, and you said what I want in addition, so I won't repeat that. But we have an opportunity here, and this opportunity, as you said, will bridge that gap, and it will bring opportunity to families for advocacy, which, you know, I could sit and spend so much time in my office trying to get supports and resources, and I had the ability to do that and advocate. So we think about the families who are struggling, who domestic violence, addiction, poverty, food insecurities. We have an amazing community, and I've been blessed to live here for almost 40 years. But we do need to open our eyes that these other issues are here, and they're not going to go away. And so if we have an opportunity to bring someone in, it has to be someone strong. It has to be someone that's willing to stand up for these families and work with agencies. And it could also be a support for all the other agencies that we have, not just police, but nurse, the TCNA, the fire, the EMS. Those people who volunteer or work in those agencies could also use this as a resource for themselves at times. So I think it's just an opportunity, and we've talked about it for some time, and then Leanne, so I'm happy to talk more to it, but I think you've said everything there is to say. We need to open our eyes to what really is going on in our community, and you know, we can look at statistics and we can look at numbers, but I saw the kids and I saw the families, and it's happening. And so I think it's a great
Donna,
time.
can I just expound on, like during COVID, you and other staff members had an opportunity to deliver meals or other things to homes. And that was probably the first time that some of the staff members got to see where these kids were living,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And how I saw it, right? But you guys only saw the kid end of it. You know, we saw the other end of
Yeah.
it, and the living conditions and so on and so forth.
Well,
You
I
know.
would often see that with home visit some, but until you see it, you can't believe it. When I've done some Meals on Wheels some years back, I thought I knew this community. I thought I knew our population. I saw things that I couldn't believe. I saw buildings, homes that I couldn't believe, and people that needed care. And as everyone was trying to help them, there was still a missing piece for them. So I think, until you're out there, but for staff to see that, and even when we were online with families, you would get a glimpse into their homes. And I'd have, part of my job during COVID was bringing down staff. Like, we had no idea this is what was going on for these families, you know, we can't believe. So, yeah.
Julie, you got a 30-second addition, or did we cover it?
I think you've covered it. I think it's an opportunity. We already have a great collaborative teaming going on with the police department from TCNA, and been really interested in what these other departments who've implemented social workers are learning about how it works in their communities. It's a great opportunity to be leaders in the state of figuring out how this works in a smaller place. We totally at TCNA are fully supportive and see the opportunity to collaborate together and trying to fill the gaps. That's all.
Thanks. So, from a budget point of view, it's in the budget, the money's there. If we found a great officer tomorrow, the money is there for that too, because we've already crunched the numbers. So, we've been struggling to find somebody to support this department and therefore support the needs of town, and we're thinking outside the box, and I hope you give your blessing to Chief to take this step.
Absolutely. I don't think we need to
No?
vote on anything,
No.
because you have the budget, and you can start putting out feelers for someone to fill a position.
Sounds great.
Great work, thank you.
Thank
So you've got a job description, you can post it and start looking for somebody.
Yeah.
That'd be
Excellent.
great.
Yeah, and I think Leanne touched on it a bit, but the Dover social worker who basically helped launch that program in 2022 also created a network of police social workers that meet monthly, just by Zoom. And so they collaborate on various ideas or legal stuff or whatever, discussions. We do, like, prosecutors do the similar thing, like, we do it for, like, our sex assaults, we meet monthly. So I having worked in those collaborative groups, I know that they're really helpful and they bring back stuff to our agency every time we're involved in them. So, and they've offered up their help, assistance, whatever, that they can provide.
Thanks for thinking outside the box.
Also,
Making
just
that.
one other thing I forgot to say is we've talked about how meeting with families in a neutral zone that's maybe not in the police department can be a role that TCNA has in terms of sharing.
End the meeting.
I'm trying. Zoom bombing.
Yeah, I've heard of it, never seen it.
Second time we've gotten that.
Thunderstorm. I missed that last one.
You missed the last one? It's
Thank
exactly
God.
the same thing. It's the exact same person.
No, I'm not okay.
Well, that's a great transition, so you guys have a good night.
Can I just add one thing to that?
Yep.
Very quickly. When we talk about mental health and resources, and I'm sure you've heard this, but I just want it to be heard again. When we send families to the emergency room for emergency services, they're not available.
Right.
And this would be another opportunity for those families who are in such distress, at risk, to have a person in our community who's like the TCNA, who's the fire chief, the police chief, someone they know that can help them with that.
Yeah.
It's really catastrophic.
And the core of the work is that, but like also just like post-incident follow-up, right? That's like a huge piece that kind of falls in the gap sometimes. Because we got to focus, like even if there's a criminal aspect like a domestic, and we want to follow up with, do our work for the report and the complaints to the court and the court process. There's just like, there's a fall off on the follow-up with the family. There's children in that home and they need to, be heard and so we think that's a good avenue to provide further services.
Well, thank you for coming in and for all you do.
And that's the other thing is I have.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
All right? Good luck.
Thanks.
That's agenda item number 2.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so
right.
scared to relaunch this meeting right now.
We are going to move to public hearings, of which we have 3 consecutive hearings. With Scott Milliken and Donna Lane regarding community block grants for work they're doing for some acres.
Good evening.
Hi, Donna.
How are y'all? I have a handout. Do you all want one? Sure. Pass them out, I guess.
Sure.
And you want me over here? Good. There's a hot seat. Yeah. Plus, I can't see the TV.
Yeah, right.
It's probably kind of that way. So yes, there are 3 consecutive public hearings. Scott, you want to come over here? Hot seats. And so if you can open one, then I will just take over from there.
I officially open,
Thank you.
I make a motion to open a public hearing for a proposed application of the Community Development Finance Authority for up to $500,000 in community development block grant housing funds.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Barry, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Robert
Schaefer, yes.
624.
At 6:24, thank you, Ed. Okay,
Okay, for
we're
me?
open.
So I have to read to you, I apologize, but that's how these things go. Community development block grant funds are available to to municipalities through the New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. Up to $500,000 annually is available for economic development projects, up to $750,000 in support of housing projects, up to $500,000 for housing projects, up to $500,000 for public facility projects, up to $500,000 in emergency funds, and up to $25,000 per planning study grant. All projects must directly benefit a majority of low and moderate income persons. This is a proposed application to the Community Development Finance Authority, CDFA, for up to $500,000 in Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, housing funds. Of the total grant, up to $35,000 will be retained by the town to cover eligible administrative and labor compliance costs. The remaining funds will be subgranted to Housing Initiatives of New England Corporation, which in turn will loan the proceeds to the Remick Acres project via a related entity to support improvements to its 24 units of affordable housing for individuals aged 62 and older and/or persons with disabilities located at 145 Tamworth Road. The project conforms with Tamworth's proposed housing and community development plan's goal of encourage a varied stock of safe, sanitary, decent, and affordable housing for persons of all age and income groups. That's a short-term and a long-term goal. And I do want to say that there is a public handout available, which we handed out, but I have them here if anybody else wants one. Do the selectmen have any questions or comments on the project, the proposed project?
We got to fill in last meeting, so we're pretty comfortable with it.
Does the public have any questions or comments on the project? So if you want to close that one and open the next one.
Okay, we're going to close that public hearing at 6:27. And I make a motion to open a public hearing for the anti-displacement relocation assistance plan for the Remick Acres proposed rehabilitation project at 6:27. Okay.
You have to do a
Oh.
call.
Do I have a second?
Sorry, second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Price, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Okay.
This plan outlines measures under the Uniform Relocation Act required for CDBG projects that involve any displacement or relocation of persons or businesses. If the town were to undertake a CDBG project which involved displacement or relocation, they would follow this plan. The plan outlines the measures they would take to find comparable, suitable housing for persons or businesses displaced or relocated. This project does not anticipate displacement or relocation, as the improvements within the units are not expected to take longer than a day. If any unexpected temporary displacement does occur, the owner will follow the Uniform Relocation Act. So this is something that has to be adopted every time you ask for CDBG funds, whether it really applies or not. In this case, it probably doesn't apply, but there's always a chance something could go awry, and that the owners would take care of the people. It wouldn't cost them to put, they'd put them up in a hotel if they needed to, or an empty apartment or something like that, and it would cost the residents anything.
Any questions about that of it? Public? All right, I'll close that public hearing at 6:28 and make a motion to open the public hearing for the updated housing community development plan.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Price, yes.
Roberts, yes. Schaefer, yes.
A housing community development plan is required to be eligible to apply for CDBG funds. The proposed housing community development plan identifies needs which currently exist or are anticipated during the next 3 years. The plan provides for a basis for guiding the town's housing community development objectives and actions. In addition, the proposed plan includes a CDBG citizen participation plan that details the requirements for public hearings. So the plan that I'm proposing to you today is the same plan that you had in 2016. So it can't be more than 3 years old. That one's obviously more than 3 years old. So these are the goals that were in it then. These are the goals that are still in it. They're just nice goals to have. Encourage a varied stock of safe, sanitary, decent, and affordable housing for persons of all age and income groups. Encourage economic development activities to increase quality industrial and commercial development. Encourage the expansion and retention of employment opportunities for residents. Encourage municipal and private water and wastewater systems that are safe, sanitary, meet DES regulations. Preserve and promote the town's historically and culturally significant structures, and promote activities that protect the health and safety of residents and visitors. So I haven't suggested any changes to your goals. They're good the way they are. Any questions or comments?
I have none. Any in the public? Okay, I will close that public hearing at 6:30. Thank you for,
So now we have some, if you see on that, there's some voting, if you can do those motions,
okay.
if you want. No pressure, but, no pressure, but Rob, we'll follow the script we did on.
Yeah, right. Where are those motions?
Should be page 2,
The handout.
I have right here.
Oh, with that, thank you. Okay. So I make, these are motions then. I make a motion that the selectmen vote to approve the submittal of the Runic Acres Improvement CDBG application and vote authorize the chairman, Board of Selectmen to sign and submit the CDBG application. Upon approval of the CDBG application, authorize the chairman, Board of Selectmen, to execute any documents which may be necessary to effectuate the CDBG contract and any amendments thereto.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I make a motion that the selectmen vote to adopt the anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan for the Runic Acres Improvement Project.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I make a motion to have the selectmen vote to adopt the updated housing and community development plan.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Thank you. Do you want to sign papers now, or do you want to, what do you want to do?
Well, are they in this packet? There, I can put them in the signature file for the end of the meeting, and I can come
Okay.
back to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
want me to notarize that?
Oh, that's right, they need to be notarized. Yeah, no, you gotta do it.
Well, one page anyway.
Yeah, why don't you do that now? Sorry, off my, I was thrown off a little
Got a
here.
little bit thrown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Displacement relocation assistance plan.
You need just the
Just
chair to
chair?
sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's easy.
Housing and community development plan. Application. I'll notarize that one. This is the, it's an environmental form, but it's just releasing its environmental exempt form for doing paperwork. Another environmental will have to be done later on more, that's what, which you might know a little bit about, because they send you documents on it in the old days. And then this is the HUD disclosure, none of you guys are making any money off this project,
Darn.
unless you are. You should probably tell me before you sign. That's all, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for making these places nicer for
Yeah?
people to
Well, you're
live.
Oh, we just did send them to you, copies of everything?
Great.
Okay, thank y'all.
All right.
Chris, a question?
Oh, we have one question.
Yeah, Chikora Woods will buy it.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Email me the information.
I sure will.
We have one question from the public.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I know you did a site review and assessment of what needs to be done. Can you just give us the top lines of the kinds of work that you're planning and whether
So we
that-
don't have the report back yet, but it's a great question.
Yeah.
And our vice president and lead developer is actually finishing that, the final work with the company that did that work. I think within 2 weeks, we should have.
But in
We should
general,
have a report.
but in
what
general,
we're
it's
gonna
siding, roofing.
I'm not sure. It's really tough to say. I mean, it's gonna be anything and everything that needs to be updated. So it's any kind of deferred maintenance. They went through every single unit. I know we're gonna do water testing. Just looking at the parking lot needs to be done. I know that for sure. We are talking about the things that you mentioned.
Do you
For
wanna-
sure.
you
We
wanna
are
say
talking
what-
about, we will discuss energy efficiency. We're talking about the heating systems. There were questions from the residents. We spoke with, we had a resident meeting at the property. We asked them what they'd be interested in. We're following up with a written survey to all of our residents. We spoke with our property management staff, which includes a service coordinator, very similar to what you're talking about hiring here for the town. And they gathered a tremendous amount of information for us about services that are provided to our residents, which include the the nurses and VNA and CAP and whatnot, so we're gathering the same information. It sounds like services that are still available, because some aren't, right? So energy assistance and whatnot. So we're gonna be sending out a written survey to them as well. We've collected information from our management team on what they think needs to be done, so we're gonna put all this together and we'll have, once we're done, we will be able to present it. And I'll keep you in the loop.
Great.
And we'll keep the town in the loop too, so you'll know exactly what we're doing and when.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'm going to move on to new business with the Conway Rail Trail. Chris Elliott.
And I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, because we have a presentation.
So my name is Chris Elliott. I am, and I'm here with Tia Gagnon. I'll let Tia say a few words about herself.
Sure. I'm from Madison, and I'm a board member of Fort. That's why I'm here helping Chris tonight.
And she put together this wonderful presentation, which we just did at Madison, and we gave a presentation to Ospey, not using her slideshow, so it wasn't as good. So, but I'm on Fort. I'm the vice chair of Friends of Ospey Rail Trail. I'm also involved with the Ospey Economic Development Council. I'm also involved with Friends of Constitution Park, which you've never visited, you ought to do that. I'm an avid hiker and biker, and I will say that I have biked many roads here in Tamworth. I always pause to try to decide which direction up Page Hill I should go. Both are very steep. So we're here to talk about the Conway Branch Rail Trail and also about Fort. So if we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm just going to read this. It's easier if I read it and you can interpret it. Friends of the Ospey Rail Trail. And I want to be clear, it started out as Friends of the Ospey Rail Trail because early on the scope of this was much narrower and much shorter. And it's expanded over the past year. So I don't want you to think just because we say Ospey, we're not concerned about Tamworth and Madison, and even Albany is involved in this. But the idea is to create and steward a regional rail trail by collaborating with like-minded organizations and communities. And I want to emphasize the next part here, to enhance the recreational and economic opportunities for the towns of Ospey, Tamworth, Madison, and Conway, with the hope of actually connecting with other trail networks. Connectivity is very important with rail trails. And I don't know how many of you have been out on bikes and done rail trails, but over the last 40 years, hundreds of rail trails and thousands of miles of rail trails have been throughout the country. And they have really done wonderful things for communities, building up communities, recreational opportunities, economic. You're going to see that later on. So Fort, we started working with officials with the idea of working on this corridor. And as I said, initially, the corridor was just going to be for Route 28 in Ossipee up to about Route 16, about 7.5 miles. But working with our state rep, Jonathan Smith, and also State Senator Mark McConkey, they decided to put in a request for longer. And the area, this whole corridor, was part of the Department of Transportation. And for 6 years, the Department of Transportation was supposed to be developing a master plan. They kept on kicking the can down the road, and to the frustration, I think, of a lot of legislators. So finally, and this was with Act HB 1468, the 21 miles from Route 28 all the way up to West Main Street, which is the Albany-Conway border, is now being converted to the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And they're the ones now that are taking over this 21-mile section. The town of Ossipee stepped forward, and by the way, I'm not here asking you for money. We're just here to really inform you and the public so you can inform other people. We'll just hand out, though, this is the flyer that we handed out at our town meeting, which sort of articulated the rationale for why we wanted the town to dedicate. They gave us $25,000 as sort of stand-up seed money to get going. We have put in a grant with the Ospey Lakes Region Planning. We're waiting to hear back. We'll see what happens. We are in the process of getting nonprofit status, a laborious task, but we've taken the first step. We've gotten authorization. We need to move on to the next step. Okay. So I don't know if you know the history of this corridor. I know people in the town of Ossipee that actually, way back when the trains used to run, they would it would be the ski train. They would come up here and they would go skiing. They would take the train up from Boston and it would stop in Ossipee. There were 3 stops in Ossipee, Ossipee Corner, Center Ossipee and West Ossipee, and I think obviously came north here through Tamworth and into Madison and all the way up to Conway. But that all stopped in about 1972 and the rails had just sort of sat there. And by the way, the section, you're going to see it later, Ossipee and Madison have the majority of the mileage. Tamworth has about 1.5 miles. And I've walked it, although I'm not supposed to be on it, but I went ahead and walked it. It goes from the ice cream place at Eldridge all the way up to, well, I know the Madison Road, the Doe Road in Madison, that variance, about 1.5 miles, maybe 1.75 miles section in there. Yeah.
Like ski and beach area
Yeah.
on the other side.
Yeah, and there's actually, the snowmobilers use that section and head over to White Lake State Park, and it's the whole area there. So it was abandoned in 1972. There was a study done in 2004 with the idea, can we bring trains back here? And at that time, the cost was going to be about $20 million. So you can just imagine what it would be now. The trail, the rails would have to be replaced. They could not support, I think the speed at which a train can go would be like 8 miles an hour. They just don't have the support. The ties, the railroad ties are all falling apart. So major renovation would need to occur. So we are trying to work with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to the best sort of recreational aspect of it. Okay, so we're doing a lot of potential. We haven't started filling out grants yet, but we're starting to do that. We're looking to do some private donations, some grants, some town matches, some fundraisers, business sponsors, a lot of different things. One of the things I learned with working with Constitution Park, where we were able to raise $130,000, a lot of little bake sales, but a lot of investigating which foundations give you grants that are most supportive. So we're not there yet. We've got to get the 501c3 status before we can even go out there with our literature and do that. But that's hopefully where we're going to go. We're talking to other organizations that have done rail trails. There's the Northern Rail Trail, the Presidential Rail Trail. There's one up in North Conway. And let me get back to the connectivity. One of the things we're also looking at is if we can get this fully developed, it would connect with the trail up in Conway, which then can go to Freiburg, which then can go all the way down to Portland. And there's the whole thing called the Eastern Greenway, which is the whole stretch of biking that goes from Florida all the way up to Maine. So there's great potential here. Any of you who have ever been to Europe know that they are way ahead of us in terms of bike trails and paths and people using bikes. Next. Okay, so the first section is in Ossipee. It's 2.7 miles and it's about 7.5 miles. So it goes from Route 28 all the way through Ossipee up to Route 16. If you've ever driven Route 16, you see Bucket of Balls, the new driving range. That's where it crosses the road. So that's the first section. And I'll get back to that in a second because there's an advisory committee meeting that we've already had. And I'll get back to that in a second. The next phase would be right here through Tamworth. And then obviously the last phase goes all the way up to Conway. As I say, I've had the opportunity to actually walk these trails. Technically speaking, I was only supposed to walk it during the winter time. They allow the snowmobilers to do it and they allow people to cross-country ski and snowshoe. It's a liability issue, but they don't really, I haven't been caught. So I haven't been found punished. So I've walked most of this. The section here through Tamworth is actually quite beautiful, quite nice. The section through Madison, right near Madison Boulder, goes right through there. Chain of Ponds, very, very nice area to deal with. Okay. So how would this benefit Tamworth? So there are a variety of things. So I think if you would go to the next slide, thanks. Okay, so one of the things that's happened is it helps out for tax purposes. It brings businesses, it brings people to your town, it makes your town more attractive and for things to do. In Ossipee, we're looking to renovate Center Ossipee, which unfortunately when Route 16 came in and nobody used 16B anymore, the town of Ossipee sort of faltered. I don't know if anybody remembers back then, there used to be a hotel there called Statler in the Sticks that was there, and there used to be a grocery store, and there used to be a lot of businesses. Well, once 16 came through, it became sort of a ghost town. So we're looking at this as an economic development for Ossipee. I think there are lots of economic developments that could happen here in Tamworth. Again, as I say, I bike a lot through here. I've come across through here. If there's a connectivity to this trail, people would come over in this section. Again, recreation. And we want it to be for lots of different users. We just don't want it to be for bikes. We want it to be for people who are pedestrians. We're hoping to have sections that be ADA accessible. We're hoping it could be good for skateboarders, people on scooters, lots of opportunities for people to get out there. What the surface will look like, still to be determined. Still to be determined. And I don't know if anybody's been on the Cotton Valley Rail Trail down in Wolfboro. That's one possibility, that where stone crush would go in between the rails. They also have a path on the side of the rails. Couldn't do that here. There's not enough room on the side of the rails to have a parallel path. So we're going to have to decide how best to do that. And each town and each organization is going to have to advocate what they think is best.
And we do have, on the DNCR, we have representation from Tamworth. I believe it's your rec director.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things, I'm saying here, we actually would, you should have gotten a letter from DNRC. We do need to have a selectman, where each town is selectman and a designated representative. So I'm the designated representative. The president of our organization, Fort, is the Fort representative. So Jeremy can certainly be the town representative, but I think there's also going to be possibly a selectman. Yes, you, Carl. Good for you. I'll tell you about
Sorry.
age-friendly wellness opportunities. The one in Ossipee goes through some residential communities. It would be a great way for people to get into the center of town, via bike or via walking. Just again, the potential is there. And year-round. We're very much involved with the snowmobile groups. They very much would like the rails pulled up. As you might imagine, that would buy them about another 4 to 6 weeks of usability, because with the rails there, the snow, it causes problems and issues and so forth. So that's the issue. So this is, you can see what the trails sort of look like. Some conditions good, some conditions not very good at all. Next, thanks. Okay, so here is the Tamworth section. And Tia, correct me if I'm wrong, the magenta, are those the snowmobile access points, or what are they?
So the first one was my attempt at using the corridor, the snowmobile corridor that goes from the rail to White Lake, so that's already there. And a lot of this is about, like Chris said, updating the snowmobile trail for four-season use. So that could be a possibility. And then I was also thinking as I was driving, because I did this for Madison too. But what's the road right before the state police station that connects down into
Depot Road?
Depot?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that might be a good one too. But I didn't put it on there. And there's the kind of issue of 16, but I think we hit that on a lot of the different crossings, so hopefully we'll be able to work with the DOT on that, on safety crossings. And then number 6 was Ski and Beach through Carved and Bark, which is our kind of version of denser neighborhood on the Madison side, which also then connects over to number 5, Ossipee Pine Barrens. If you've gone in there, it's an ADA hiking trail.
So, and actually from Eldridge, right where it crosses 41 to just about where that snowmobile trail goes to the left, a lot of the rail has been pulled up. So it's no longer even there. Some years ago, somebody must have just yanked it up, and so forth. So you all know the various spots here: White Lake State Park, Ossipee Lake, Pine Barrens.
And that was just my go of it, because I'm not from Tamworth, but I'm in Madison, and it kind of met with what I had already done for Madison. So if you guys have ideas on how that should look or to better it, I'd appreciate it.
I think there's one more slide, maybe? Yes. So again, what you can do is just being aware of it. Again, we're not asking for any money or anything. We're just asking for awareness and support, and hopefully spreading it to the community. we do need representation at this advisory committee meeting. So there's a Conway Branch Trail Road Advisory Committee. We've already had one meeting. Jeremy was there to represent Tamworth. It was great. The next meeting is July 10th. I think Carl earlier was sent out as July 1st, but it's actually July 10th at 10 a.m. and it's at the Freight House in Center Ossipee. I'm not sure, that's right near the Mountain View restaurant, right in the center of town there.
Yeah.
There's a whole series of meetings. They've got them scheduled out for the next year. Whether we need to have them for next year remains to be seen. The idea is they're gonna pick a consultant to try to get all the stakeholders and what everybody would like to do and so forth. As I said earlier, we're trying to focus our attention on that 7.5 mile stretch from Route 28 to Route 16 because we feel that was the original intent of what we were trying to do. And so we don't want the whole 21 miles to obscure that. So that's not to say the other things aren't important, but we feel like we can use that as sort of a test case to get going on that. So that's all I have. I do have one final thing if anybody else has afterwards, if people have questions or anything.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it seems like a great idea, and I hope you're successful.
Well, we know it's going to take time.
Yeah.
We followed the North Conway group. It was 10 years for them to just get 3 miles. So we hope we can be a little shorter than that. But thank you for, any questions from the public or anybody? Okay. All right, so one of the other thing that as I said, I was an avid hiker. I'm also the Economic Development Council in Ossipee. And I did create, I'd like to leave here a couple copies of the Ossipee area hiking trails, of which there are 43 trails, and here Tamworth is very well represented. And if you've never gone on the Brook Path along 113A, I think?
Yeah.
That is forest bathing to the best. It's 2 miles of back and out and back. It's outstanding. But there are 43 trails there. My email's in the back. If there's any corrections or any additions, you want to send them to me, there will certainly be a second edition. So, and Emily, maybe I'll leave a couple here for just for the town hall.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
And we do have a full evening, so I'm going to keep moving.
Okay.
Old business, we're going to move on to the PA 60 Conservation Restriction Reduced Assessment.
Oh, I think we had Energy Committee up
Oh,
first. I'm
you're
sorry.
right, we do. We have Gabrielle Watson with Energy Committee. I'm sorry, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I will try to be quick because I know you have a packed agenda. What I'm bringing before you today is a proposal to issue an invitation to bid for some EV charging, revising from the project that we talked about last year, going from 4 ports to 2 ports. So it would take up 2 parking spaces. And what we thought we would do this time is take advantage of the competitive bidding process to see what kind of costs we might get, since we expect that we'll be able to get much more lower cost charging facilities and potentially, work with sort of more New Hampshire made local providers, but the intent is, and I have a list of EV charging companies to send this out to, and what is in front of you is a very simple invitation to bid document that's modeled after invitations to bid that you guys did recently around electrical work at the transfer station, and then an attachment, a 4-page attachment with technical specifications, sort of laying out the basics of what we want. So we want sort of level 2 chargers, which charge about 25 miles an hour, so it's not the super fast chargers, but it's not like plugging it into a wall, which can take days to charge an electric vehicle. And the level 2 charger is designed for people who are gonna come and linger for a while, they're gonna go to the library, they're gonna go to the bakery, they're gonna come and do business here at the town offices. They'll go to the farmer's market, attend a barnstormers show, that sort of thing. Or for residents who rent in the area who don't necessarily have access to chargers, they could also use it, particularly in the evenings when it's not under demand from tourists and other residents and visitors. And basic kind of standard charger types that, like a Tesla would use an adapter to use it, but pretty much it's the most universal charging type right now. 11772, I think, with a really interesting name. And yeah, I think those are the basic details. The TCNA already laid the conduit, so the preferred location is in the back rear end of the parking lot where that conduit is laid. That's saving trenching costs at this point for the present project. And what we would be paying for is the copper, cable or wire that would go out there, the equipment itself, the setup fees to initiate the stations, and then there would be annual maintenance and commission fees. And we would be setting the rates to be slightly above what the town is going to be paying for providing the electricity, so that we'd be accruing a little bit of money for future expansion as the EV fleet grows. Right now, the EV fleet's about 1% of cars in New Hampshire, 2% in Vermont, 2% in Massachusetts, where most of the tourists come from, who come to especially the Lakes region. The anticipation is by 2030, between 5 and 10% of the fleet's going to be electric. So this is sort of getting prepared for that and inviting people to be coming to Tamworth as opposed to other communities where they have an option to charge here. So to sort of help us stand out a little bit in terms of economic development. Studies have shown that you get about a 13% increase in business traffic when you install charging stations, so there's an economic benefit to the local business, I will say, in town, but future businesses. So, questions?
The anticipation would be that it would be privately funded, once we get some bids and see how much it costs?
Yes, I've approached the Tamworth Foundation, which provided funding had made a commitment to fund 20% of the original proposal, and they have indicated to me that they would invite a second proposal to them. Their next round is in September, so that's when we would hopefully be able to go to them with that. I am anticipating, based on additional information that's come up in the last couple months, that we'll be able to get a much lower cost than what we had estimated for the 4 chargers. Going with, really national brand, I think we can go local and save a lot of money. So.
Any kind of regular maintenance, upkeep?
You want a
Plowing costs?
contract, yes, and so that you get a contract with a service provider who would be doing that. And so that's what we would be looking for in the bids, like what kind of maintenance contract you have, how much does it cost per year, what all is involved. But it includes access to the data, like how much is it being used, what's the uptime, what's the downtime, any repairs that happen to it.
I saw you had listed for 5 years, I think, in the invitation to bid. Do you know how long the stations normally last for? What's their lifespan?
I'm gonna guess 5 to 10 years, but I'll have to come back to you on that. Yeah.
And so the maintenance, the maintenance cost would be paid for with that markup that you were saying in the...
Yeah, so the aim, we get to set the price at whatever
Right.
level we want, and the aim would be cover 100% of the electricity costs, cover 100% of the maintenance costs, and any other warranty, annual warranties or anything like that, and then have a little surplus on top of that. So we're gonna look around, typically you're paying about 45 cents per kilowatt hour when you go to a supercharger. It's a little less when you go to a level 2 typically, but so we'll see, we'll put ourselves somewhere in there, but probably a little bit higher, because we're not here to subsidize anybody's fuel.
Yeah.
Do we have an idea of the town's liability by having charging stations on the town's property? Does it change anything for Primex?
That's a good question I could find out about or work with Emily to ask Primex about that. I haven't heard about town liability being an issue.
I just bring it up because one of my concerns is
Yeah.
about a car fire, as our previous EMD reported on, I think last year.
Yeah.
So didn't know, I'm sure Primex would weigh into that.
Because Primex probably has some experience with that in other towns.
That's my thought.
Yeah, that's great.
Any other questions for Gabrielle? All right.
So are you looking for the board to make any motions tonight?
Yes, yeah, so if you're comfortable with it, what we would love to do is issue the invitation to bid. There's a schedule that's on the invitation to bid where the bidders could ask questions by, I think anyway, the dates are in here.
On first, yeah.
But we'd be looking for bids to be coming in on the 11th and then opening them here at the town offices on July 14th. So that's the current schedule. If we don't go forward tonight, then we'll just, adjust the schedule. But that's what we're asking.
I make a motion we issue the invitation to bid as written.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, no.
Price, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Thank you.
All right.
And you can work with Emily to do a very short paragraph, that's what would be the public notice in the paper.
Okay.
It's that, because then we save
I have
a
a
lot of time.
quick question, now that we're moved on from this. So, before my concern with the charging stations was that it would limit the amount of parking in the parking lot out back, but where this would be privately funded versus a grant, then that may not be the case, right?
I think the funding is independent of the hosting and the location. If it's intended to be a public charging station in a public parking lot, it's considered public.
Okay.
Open, accessible 24 hours a day, and there's actually an RSA that specifies that it has to be for EVs, if
Okay.
you do that. So it can be 100% private funding.
Last time around, the grant required 4
Yeah.
spaces, and this time is 2. So.
Yeah, no, I was thinking for some reason it was because of the grant that was for the parking issue, but you know.
No, I actually did have a conversation with Chief Littlefield about the possibility of flexible enforcement of exclusive EV parking, like during the farmer's market or during a barnstormers, and everybody's wanting to park in the village. And the parking regulations as they are right now are a little ambiguous. I think he would like a little bit more specificity in the parking regulations, but my understanding of that RSA is that we wouldn't be permitted to be explicit about, for instance, requesting the police department to be flexible in its enforcement of parking restrictions. Not that they do a whole lot of that, but...
Yeah.
We'll have time soon to do more parking.
We hope. We hope.
And I think with a couple of more signs that direct people where the parking is, to park down by the townhouse, I think that's what be bound out. People are just naturally lazy and want to park right in front of wherever they're going, but it's not that far. So a couple parking signs, public parking, to direct them in both locations for now.
Right, my committee is on it.
Ah, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Good one, Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Gabrielle. All right, now we will move on to PA 60, Conservation Restriction Reduced Assessments, Public Benefits. Having obtained legal advice, and having carefully considered the information submitted by the taxpayer, first I make a motion to deny the PA 60 application for map 407, lot 113. Second. Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Price, yes.
Roberts, yes.
let's see. Pursuant to RSA 79B:4, we've considered the ongoing eligibility for a conservation restriction exemption for the following properties. Map 402, lot 009, and map 407, lot 116. I move to reclassify these properties as ineligible for the exemption. Specifically, I move to do so because the taxpayer has not met their burden to establish that the covenants granted to the Chicago Lake Conservancy Foundation as applied to their properties create one or more demonstrated public benefits as defined in RSA 79B:4.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Price, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the recycling building RFP for design engineer results. Richard.
So you've got a folder. We issued an RFP 2 weeks ago to seeking engineering and design assistance to help bring our conceptual plans for recycling building to a state where they could be bid out. We essentially have we received 5 responses to that, so I was very pleased with the responses. We have essentially a choice to make among the respondents if we want to go that route, or we stick with Sanborn Head. At the same time, Sanborn Head did submit a proposed contract amendment that we asked for over a month ago, and it arrived yesterday. The Sanborn Head proposed contract amendment is in your package as well, and their estimated cost to do the work is about $112,000, which is about twice what we have. It's not a huge surprise. They do very good work, but it's expensive. My objective in seeking proposals from other firms was to see, can we find people that have good knowledge of the site, have relevant experience, who could help us make this a much simpler project, just give us technical advice on advance the design so we can bid it out and keep it, make it faster and simpler than it has been in the past. The firms that have responded are, and some of them may have zoomed in. We do have a representative from Bergeron Technical Services here, HEB Engineers in Conway, Bergeron Technical Services in Conway, Bruce Knox from North Berwick, Maine, Port One Architects in Portsmouth, and CMA Engineers. Most of these individuals are known to us at some level. Currently, HEB is a sub-consultant to Sanborn Head on the existing work on the transfer station. They've had years of experience at the transfer station. Their main partner in this would be Alba Architects. They're also a sub right now to Sanborn Head on the current transfer station design. Bruce Knox actually did the original conceptual design that was part of the town meeting authorization 2022? That's right. Before that. It's been a while now. Maybe 2021, maybe 2020. Who knows how far back it goes. But Bruce Knox worked with Willie Farnham to develop that first conceptual plan years ago. So he has certainly knowledge of the site. Bergeron Technical Services has done a fair amount of work in the area and in Tamworth. CMA Engineers, they were one of the bidders when we put the design contract out and ultimately hired Sanborn Head. So they're very qualified to design and help build transfer stations. And Port One Architects is an architectural firm in Portsmouth that has, I would say, less relevant experience than the others. So this RFP was in the paper. It's very happy to see the responses that we got. And I think, my personal opinion is, I think we'd be shooting a little high with CM engineers. We don't need a lot of design work on how to design a transfer station. We have a site, we want to put a building on the site. Port One Architects has no real local knowledge that I'm aware of. The other three are more local. I think the firm with the most local knowledge of the transfer station and the current ongoing plans are HEB engineers and their sub, Alba Architects.
I am wondering what exactly this engineering firm would do, and whether we really need them. If we have an idea of where we'd like this building to be, so really, and you had mentioned this, the idea of going with something like a Morton building.
Yep. I did have a conversation with the rep from Morton Buildings. They do wood frame buildings with a steel skin. And I did have a good conversation with their rep. And whether we go the prefab metal building or purpose-built wood frame building, you could also do a steel frame and steel building or a masonry building. There's all kinds of buildings. I know that for me personally, I need engineering advice on how to make that happen. We can't take the plans we have now and request bids on it. You could, but there's so many unknowns that the bids, some people would be unable to bid on it because it's still conceptual. So I think we need to either take the plan we have and design it out, or get advice from an engineering firm to help us develop specs, and then go to the Morton Buildings and other building manufacturers of the world and say, this is the building we want, what's the cost to give us a prefab building for that. So either way, whether you design it yourself or get a pre-designed building, you still need technical advice on how to do that.
There was we did a project on Route 16 in Ossipee. It's just getting finished up, and that was I don't know the name of the company, but it was a steel fabricated building, completely steel. And the company that sold the building, they actually offered engineered foundation plans, and I think that's the biggest part of this as far as the groundwork, site work. You know, it may not be bad to have some elevations plotted out on a set of plans, but the foundation spec is the biggest thing, and personally I think that was well over designed in that case, but depending on what the soils are like and stuff, they give you like footing size and you know what size and type of rebar needs to be used and all that. But they actually offered the engineered plans through the company, and I don't know the name of the company, but
yeah, that's the real benefit of a pre-engineered building is you engineer it once and you pay for that engineering by selling it 100 times. Whereas if you design your own, you're paying for all that design. So that I think is the real value financially of a prefab building. The individual I spoke to from Morton, I said, could you tell me some things on the set of plans you saw, because I sent him the conceptual plans, that raise any red flags? And he raised two that I had never thought of. The conceptual plan is what he called a monoslope roof. And he said that alone is going to cost you a lot of money as opposed to a standard peaked roof. I never would have thought of that. I don't know if anybody here would have thought of that. He said the size of the doors are 17 feet. If you just go to 18, it'll just be a lot cheaper. There's just a lot more doors that size. So that kind of knowledge, I never would have had that. But working with whoever we have as an engineering firm to help walk us through those decisions to make sure we get the best deal we can on the building. And I think there's a lot of possibilities for getting a cheaper building that's prefab, but it's still a bit of an unknown to me. I asked about per square foot cost, and the highest cost that I heard from Morton was $150 a square foot. And I'm estimating $175 just because I felt like I wanted to shoot high just in case. But it felt very I had a lot of hope. If the biggest number he has is smaller than the one I have, that's a good number. You hardly ever get somebody that is going to give you less than a figure. But once you start adding, electrical and such, that per square foot cost, it starts to go up. We wouldn't need any plumbing, so that'll lower the price. We have to think about, okay, do we heat all the building? I'd say no, you don't need to heat piles of plastic bottles and aluminum cans. But maybe you want to heat the space just where the balers are. Because either you pay to put hydraulic heaters in the baler, or you pay to heat the space. And if you don't heat the space and you're just heating the balers, the gentleman from Morton said you'll start getting big icicles growing inside your space because there's humans in there giving off moisture in a very cold building. So that kind of, again, another thing I hadn't thought of where you need some technical advice. The question is, where do we get it? Do we continue our relationship with Sanborn Head, which has been very productive for us and for them? But I'd like it to be quicker and cheaper. So if we were to pick somebody new, we would tell Sanborn Head their work is done and they can send us a final invoice. And we can quickly get to work with a new engineer to figure out what's the quickest and cheapest way we can get the best building. And there appears to be money in the budget to do it. We still have about $480,000 in the budget, not including the USDA grant.
APB, Bergeron, and Knox all work regularly with town.
Yep.
Town projects, the planning board works with their reps all the time.
Yeah. So those
Which
three
I'm
local
just saying,
firms are very
I just say
known.
that, I mean, Sanborn Head has been consistent with this project, but those three local businesses, I would jump ship to support
Oh, yeah, for
our relationship with them.
Yeah.
And the price points
Yeah.
lower.
And I don't know if any of the firms have zoomed in. I know Mr. Bergeron is here, then maybe, I think that's it.
We've got HEB on Zoom.
Okay. So my recommendation is that we enter into a contract with HEB to finalize a recycling building and advance the design and put it out to bid to see if we can build it before the end of the year.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Curtis, yes.
Before I vote on this, I would just like to say that how unhappy I am with the money that we've wasted up to this point on engineering to go back to the company that we turned down at the beginning. So I just like future projects, when certain people have ideas, maybe we rethink. But yes, Robert's yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Excuse me, could I just interject for a moment?
Are we on to public comment?
I don't know what the protocols are. I just feel like I just got hit by a train, and there was no opportunity for discussion. I need to know, get a little bit of explanation. Mine is one of the properties that was denied the conservation restriction. So is there a forum to do that or to get some more explanation?
So you sent a letter describing the public benefit?
Yes.
Yes, this is Mr. Whipple, and just, so normally you would wait until public comment at the end, but if the chair wants to allow for public comment to discuss this now, you can do that, Carl.
I guess that's next on the
I don't want to
agenda
take
anyway.
up.
Well, next on the agenda was the purchasing policy, but we can push that out, because I don't think that interests anybody.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, okay, we can discuss this now.
Or I could meet with someone else later. I don't want to take up time on the agenda, but that happens so fast and without, I'm sitting here the entire evening without any recognition or comments about what's going on. I'm not even sure what happened,
Well,
except that my land did not pass.
Yeah, I think what we had done was ask for all the landowners to send a letter explaining how having that status was a public benefit. And we looked that over and decided we disagreed.
Okay, but what part of the discretion was that the criteria met was one of 3 categories? And I feel that my letter met those categories, and I guess I don't know what the other parcel was. Was that Bob Watkins' parcel?
Yeah.
There is an appeal process that you can follow, but based on the legal advice we obtained from our attorneys, we did not feel that the public benefit requirements were met.
Okay. Well, I don't need to talk about it anymore. I guess I just need to see a lawyer. So, thank you.
Okay. We will move on to, where are we?
Purchasing policy?
Yeah.
Where's that in the agenda?
Well, we're all over the place.
Well, yeah, there it is. I
On
see
the
it.
second page. Oh, okay.
So we can look at this, but we can't vote to change it
Right.
right now. Because there
And-
are other steps in changing policies. that we
And
have to follow.
yeah, and with this, this all started because we were discussing a quote that we received from Cobalt to paint the police department for a
Yeah.
pretty good price. It was, I think, $6,100. You folks asked for a quote. It's in there. They could do it this fall. I thought that we had to go out to bid for anything over $5,000. It's actually just seek 3 quotes, so I'm sure we can do that pretty easily. So. We don't need to revise the policy. Richard, you'd asked for it to be on the agenda, so.
And these red changes, those are my suggestions.
Yes, those are Richard's suggestions.
It seems silly to have the highway department different than the rest of town government. Just make them all the same. So that would be my proposal if and when we'd like to change the purchasing policy. And it probably makes sense to go and seek a couple quotes, other quotes for painting the police department.
Yeah.
Is there any reason, so for highway department, that's saying that it was separate before?
Right.
The other, is that because Richard's an elected official?
No, I think it's because a lot of their purchasing of gravel and such is fairly high,
Yeah.
and they wanted to have as less an onerous process as possible. That's my perception. Does that sound
Can I
right?
speak?
Sure.
I was selectman with that policy, and it was more that Richard would face like an emergency, like if he ran out of gravel, it wasn't, or salt or anything like that. He had the ability to do that, and there was times when other departments needed to be a little bit less, with just spending money. So it was more of a control as to.
For the lower numbers in the other
Right,
departments. Got it.
Right.
Got it.
And it was also recommended by, when there was a changeover, there was a gentleman here, John Scruton, that was hired to fill in for the town administrator, and he highly recommended this policy, that being that way, so.
So I would seek quotes for the painting,
Sure.
and these are my suggestions to make the policy simpler. I'm welcome to look at it. And I don't know what the steps are that we need to take. We can at any moment waive the policy, and we have occasionally waived the policy for particular items. So I don't know if people want to ponder this and we can put it on a future agenda.
I think we just have to look at what the steps for changing a town policy.
Yeah.
It's more than just a
Yeah.
select board vote, we think, so we're
Maybe
just gonna look into it and see what we have to do to make it.
I think there will be a public hearing if there's an RSA that governs it, but I don't think
Yeah.
there is,
Oh,
but
okay.
certainly, it's not something that's high on my list of things to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I had given my administrator's report because to fill space, we were running a little early, but I forgot that you actually, see the vote that's listed, you guys need to make that vote.
Oh.
I don't think we did that,
Right.
so.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, make a motion to vote to hold a public hearing. Call and approve the warrant for a special town meeting to cure a failure to post budget MS 636. Second.
You're off with it.
You're on it, you took it over.
Not like this.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
And so you just will have to set a date for that, or?
Yeah, I will, I'm gonna have to, schedule with the supervisors and our town moderator, but then I'll be able to give you guys a,
But it'll be an evening.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Where are we now?
I think select
Select
board
board
update.
update.
Oh, I think select board update, yeah, that's right.
I have nothing more to add from,
Oh, okay. All I have is, I was at the sewer commissioners meeting last night, and they put off actually voting on approving the request, the application for the development on Greg's Way. But they are leaning toward approving that the next meeting, next month. But they did decide to put out a request for bids on water meters. So they want to put water, they're gonna buy and install water meters on all the commercial and multi-unit buildings. The DES doesn't, they don't care about residential use. I mean, as far as the volume goes. So if you can have a year's worth of data, or even 6 months of heavy use, peak season or whatever they call it, from the water meters on the commercial and multi-unit buildings, it would show, once again, how little of the capacity we're actually using. I mean,
Great.
the Lakes Region Water Company serves the water for all these buildings on the sewer system, but they actually have 88 customers. The sewer system has 25, and Lakes Region Water Company pumps 8,000 gallons a day. Our sewer system is rated for 20,000 gallons a day. But anyway, so I think by putting the meters on and having that data from Lakes Region Water, they may actually convince someone at DES that we're nowhere near capacity, and we could have more development in Tamworth.
After the water's metered for a year, whatever, does that change would that change certain people's
Assessment?
Yeah, like say they were allowed 1,000 gallons a day,
Yeah,
and they were only using 150 on average.
yeah.
Would that permanently reduce their?
I think the base rate, I think the way that works is there's a base rate, and then they would probably work in the meter reading on top of the base rate.
for the heavy users.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure.
I was just curious.
I think it would
You almost say
encourage,
the opposite though. Would you lose it if
Would
you
you
don't
lose
use
it?
oh,
Like if you're not using it, would you lose it?
oh,
Your allocation, you mean?
Yes.
no, I don't think so.
Because
I don't think so.
I mean, like if you're a business that was allocated,
Yeah.
like I said, 1,000 gallons a day, you're only using 150 on
Would
average
they
for a
take it
year.
away? No.
Would they take that away?
No, I don't think so.
Because I feel like that would be kind of a drawback.
Yeah.
I
People
was-
would
I
leave
was
their faucets going, so they would.
No, I was,
Right.
no, I was just thinking of the billing.
Yep.
Might go with the base rate and then by usage.
Oh,
So it
okay.
would actually encourage conservation,
Yep.
right? If you weren't using your,
I wasn't so much thinking
Yeah.
of the water end as I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
wondering about the septic end.
yeah.
Losing your.
Oh, right. Well, DES doesn't. So we have a meter measuring the effluent flow to the leach field.
Yep.
But DES won't recognize that, even though that's exactly what's going to the leach field.
Yeah, I guess.
But that's not from individual,
That's from the whole system.
right.
Right.
No, my question was like
Yeah.
for septic usage
I
based
don't-
off the water meter,
I don't-
would you lose septic
No.
usage? I guess is the I don't know. I'm trying to-
Yeah.
No, that's good.
I don't believe that would be the case.
Okay.
Anyway, that's it.
That's
Okay.
exciting.
Yeah. So I got to go to the LRPC Awards dinner last night and be there for recognizing Brian and Donna for their hard work on the food drive, which was really cool.
Yeah.
to see get Brian out there.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't get to say it when Donna was here.
Right.
Yeah.
Put him in the hot seat a little bit, but I think he had a good time. It was great to get out. Thanks, Leanne, for letting us know about that and getting everyone invited. Other than that, things keep going well at the transfer station. Actually, we didn't even talk about containers. I thought we were going to talk about getting.
Oh, that was the other
containers.
item on the, yeah.
But the ground level compactor's working great. We've been switching over to it on the regular. It's helping to defer all the traffic that we were having backed up whenever we would have to do a container swap in the middle of service, which we don't have to do anymore. And so Brian's been having good success getting those containers swapped out.
Plus, Waste Management swaps them.
They're doing it now instead of
Yeah.
beating up the
backhoe.
backhoe. So that's been a good success, and the bathroom is coming along nicely. I'm excited to see the progress.
Yeah. I haven't been there in a week or so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's moving right along, so it's about
It'll be the nicest bathroom in town.
While we're still on the transfer station, you mentioned the containers, so is that like something urgent that we need to purchase
I wouldn't
now?
say it's urgent. We definitely need some new containers.
For the new compactor?
And the new compactor being Witt's location, having
you don't want
holes
leaking.
and stuff
No.
leaking out on the pads. Not great.
So this is, I should probably know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. So the containers at the transfer station, we own them, Waste Management doesn't own them?
Most of them, there are a couple that Waste Management's subbed out when they've had ours for too long or they've broken ours or something like that.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't realize, I would have assumed
So-
that they were Waste Management's
Right.
containers.
Part of what Brian's doing is looking at what we can get for the old containers that won't hold anything and recoup some of that cost, get some new ones that will last us long in the future.
So
Okay.
Brian's got a price for a new one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like 11 grand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
For what size container can I buy?
30s probably. I'm pretty sure they're
Call them up.
30 or
I
40s.
want to say it was a 30 or it's 30 or 40.
30 or 40 yard.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, Mark, because, just up the road, there's a guy that's selling containers, and if you look them up, there's a lot of people that have containers kicking around that they're looking to sell.
We're
these
not,
are-
you're talking
they're
shipping
like-
containers?
Yeah.
No, these are
I'm talking compactor
compactor
containers.
containers.
Oh,
Downstairs, like
oh, okay, all right, I'm
Specifically for the
sorry,
vehicle,
all right, I didn't
the
know if you were talking like where the tires go and the electronics
Oh,
go
yeah.
and,
Yeah.
no, okay.
Solid waste.
We might be in the future soon, but
Might need those too, but
I was gonna say 11 grand, that's way out.
right,
Yeah.
that's high.
Just out of curiosity.
So we got quote for 22, 24, I think we got, yeah, 24, so.
Does Waste Management offer, or is it obviously more feasible to have your own containers, or would they
They do offer a rental service
And
essentially.
obviously this is cheap, probably the cheaper
In the long run, yeah. There are benefits to doing the rental service. If they break it, they pay for it. There's no hassle with that. However, we don't have control over the size of the container as much. So for instance, if we're expecting a 40 yard and that's what we're gonna fill, they could drop off a 30 yard and then we have to swap in the middle of service, things like that. But yeah,
With the ground level compactor, you want the best container you have because they all leak like a sieve. And if you rent them, Brian has said they just bring crappy ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now you've got
goo
all over where
Yeah.
people are driving.
I was just curious, and then, is it, obviously, it must be more feasible to invest in brand new containers versus dump half the money into what you've got, what, $5,000
Fixing them up,
under a
the condition of some of them are just completely unsalvageable.
Crumbling,
Crumbling, absolutely. The ones that we do have that we can patch, we have been patching and continue to do so.
How old are they? Are they
That's a great question. I'm not sure the
are
age
they
of them.
original to the transfer
I'll
station?
bet the ones that he
There's
doesn't
some
use
pretty old
much
ones
probably
down
are.
I mean, Glenn was talking about
Yeah.
this years ago.
Yeah.
The same decommissioned ones
Yeah.
sitting there.
Yeah. Did Brian, he came to us because he was having some aggressive interactions with a couple of townspeople who were putting inappropriate things in inappropriate places and then being rude and
combative.
belligerent. We got any feedback how it went addressing that? Or has it not come up again, so we don't know?
I mean, I've talked about a few different instances that they have dealt with fairly calmly.
Okay,
I haven't heard of any
anything since then?
highly elevated instances of confrontations.
Okay, good. Sorry, let's slower on this. We took off the disposal of brush public hearing, because I need to notice it with the proposed fee. So, do you guys have a proposed fee? Talk to Brian about that at all?
Brian,
One of you guys mentioned the
I
fee.
think I think Brian had mentioned $20 or something for a pickup.
he had,
I couldn't quite understand his text message to me. I think he said 20 per
load.
load and then 35 per trailer.
right, he was,
And we're gonna define what load means, like pickup truck
Yeah,
load,
really.
or,
That's what I.
Yeah.
6 foot bed, 8 foot bed.
I'm
Any
just saying, you
pickup
know,
truck
like.
load, I would say.
I can get you you need the details before you post the.
Yeah, so
Has
just
to be.
whenever you get that figured out,
Sure.
let me know, and then we can post it from
Yeah.
there.
How do we determine fees for, construction debris? Because there's no set fees for that, right? Isn't that estimated?
It's cubic yards. Yeah, cubic feet.
Yeah.
Is there any way we could
It's supposed to be.
kind of do the same thing and leave it a little bit more open-ended? Because I feel like, I don't know, just my opinion, somebody could get a lot more stuff in an 8-foot bed versus
Yeah.
like a Toyota Tacoma comes in with a
Yeah.
5-foot bed and it's loosely stacked versus like, I don't know.
And what it is, if it's styrofoam versus
Pink
brick.
insulation
No,
versus
he's talking about
sheetrock.
brush.
Just
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
for
could we
brush.
do the same thing for brush as construction? Because isn't construction debris kind of determined by,
By its volume.
yeah,
It
and by
is, yeah.
Brian, I mean, Brian,
He was, I
Uses
think Brian was trying to
it.
find an easy way to quantify it,
Right.
so it was a
Well, if it was-
load or a trailer. But, yeah, some way that the average person could read it and say, oh, I guess it's gonna cost me that much before you drive down.
Right. Yeah, he had talked, he definitely looks at what they're bringing in and tries to give a very fair estimate based off of the volume. And if it's nasty, gnarly brush that's gonna
Yeah.
put stones into the chipper versus,
I'm just gonna throw it out there, we've been bringing this up. I still want us to not take a scale off the table, because we're still, like, consistently, and I mean no disrespect to the guys who are working for us at the transfer station, but one guy looks at your truck and says $5, and one guy looks at your truck and says $45, and it's in the moment, you're busy or whatever, you're.
And if we
And
got a
it's-
scale, then we should weigh the brush too.
maybe, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like,
Maybe.
I mean, if, there's at least money not to be lost, if not money to be made. And I don't think it's, like, I've been talking to Matt Rose about this on and off, because that guy just wants to talk trash all the time. And he's interesting, and he's interested in it, and it just seems like it's a no-brainer, and the staffing part is not as hard as we're thinking it. I think we're overthinking it.
I think it'd be good to sit down with Brian. He's done a lot of figuring on our current volumes and
Yeah.
former volumes and what it would be with a scale. And he's convinced me that we're doing better we are without a scale for the amount of money we're gonna spend to install it. And then every time someone comes in with a trash can full of brush, we're gonna have to go weigh that. We don't have a way to dump large construction trailers, we don't wanna get into that. And he says there's not really a lot of people that bring large amounts of debris, it's mostly the people that have a bed full of a couple sheetrocks, pieces of sheetrock and some insulation. We also have reduced who can quote, not everyone at the transfer station is quoting. That was part of the problem that you were talking about, get the similar quotes. There's only 1 or 2 individuals that are doing that quoting now.
So, would there be like a minimum for brush, then like X number for pickup, X number for trailers? Is that what he's thinking, kind of?
Yeah, I remember what it was, he sent me an audio message that I don't probably want to play here at the meeting, where he outlined how much he thought he would like to charge, so I'll get you back that number, but yes, the idea would be discretion.
Yeah.
Someone's coming with a trash can full of brush, it's
Like
again, pretty
$5
easy
or
to chip.
something, or-
He tells me about some of the nasty stuff that gets dropped off that's just horrible on the chipper. And that's the other question, is if we're gonna continue chipping, or if we're gonna burn. If we're gonna burn, it doesn't feel right to charge for burning, in my opinion.
Except the labor, like, we're having people have to restack it, move it, burn
But
it.
if they're dumping it and we're just pushing it up in a pile, the fire department comes and burns it as part of their training
Yeah.
exercise.
And we pay the firemen to be there.
We pay the firemen to be there.
Yeah.
So,
So,
maybe yours,
but-
or a minimum or something, or something?
I just don't think anything's free, it's a service we're providing.
not charging for
And-
burning is versus chipping. The chipping, I think
Yeah.
there's maintenance and that thing takes a lot of effort to keep alive. We definitely should recoup some costs on that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so I have, went to the LRPC meeting, which was great. We have planning board tomorrow, so I don't have that to report on. But what I have been looking at is, so we hired, gosh, I don't know how long ago it was now, Ed Montone as our groundwater protection enforcement agent, and we hired,
Charlie Townsend.
yeah, I was gonna say Charlie Townsend, as our junkyard inspector person. I don't remember what his official title was. Both have resigned recently, and based on the fact that both have resigned, and we've got these two open positions, I would like to propose that that I do a little research into drafting a land use regulation enforcement position that is designed only to handle enforcement for the regulations we have currently on the books that planning board, select board, and ZBA are responsible for enforcing, which are subdivision, junkyard, groundwater, and floodplain. This has nothing to do with building code. We don't have any mechanism to enforce building code, so it's not about building code. It's not about zoning building code. It's about what we have on the books that we're statutorily responsible for enforcing, and that in anybody's memory that I've talked to, nobody remembers enforcement. We have examples coming to us in forms of complaint of people using land in ways that are in violation of our regulations, and people don't notice it until it happens next door to their house, when all of a sudden 15 campers crop up overnight and no perceptible septic or pumping activity, or some land that we know is got deed restrictions or current use. It all of a sudden has two buildings on it. Or we have somebody who's putting in 15 cabins for short-term rental. They're very clear with the contractors working with them that they're for short-term rental, and they have not gone through the subdivision regulations. Why does this matter? It matters for a couple of reasons. One is that we are not taxing efficiently based on what's actually happening in Tamworth, so we're losing money. The other is that there are environmental, like the Tamworth has been pretty consistent about supporting land use regulation that protects our environment, because we love where we live and we wanted to maintain our health and the kind of natural beauty. We're not enforcing the things that are supposed to take care of this, and it's not going to get better. Like, just building is rampant in the entire Lakes region, and we are one of the few communities that it's the Wild West. You don't see a realtor's posting for anything in Tamworth that doesn't start with no zoning in Tamworth, and so folks come with a misimpression about what they are or not allowed to do. So no, there's no building code enforcement for the town, because we haven't adopted that. And I'm not suggesting that we do, but we do have things that definitely impact people who are developing their property. And if they are made aware of it, you would hope that they'd be law-abiding and follow the requirements. So what I'd like to do is do some research and see if there's a way to create a mechanism for a person to be hired to understand and enforce the regulations that we have on the books.
I thought we already approved this at the last meeting.
I'm bringing it up again in conjunction with something else
Okay.
that I'm going to segue into.
Oh, goodness.
The part of this that is tricky is that right now what we do have as a tool is our building notification form, which, before I get into the legality of it or anything else, I'm going to say is a terrible form. It is like 6 pages. It looks like a middle school essay. 6 different fonts, 6 different type sizes, like you look at it and your head wants to explode, you can't make sense of it. So I can see people being given that and saying, well, it's not required, it's recommended, I can't even understand this. The building notification form was adopted in 2004, and it was adopted under the wrong RSA. So it was inappropriately adopted by the town meeting. It's been used ever since. There's a $100 fee attached to that. It is not something that we require. It's recommended that if you have some kind of construction, renovation on your property that exceeds $5,000, you complete this form, and it's meant to be purely a trigger for the assessing office to understand when there's development in town. The fee, the RSAs allow enforcement to collect fees to cover the enforcement, but that's not what we've been collecting the fee for. So, because we've been inappropriately collecting this fee, Emily and I talked to the lawyer to see what our options are. And since June 9th, we have stopped collecting money. We still are allowed to request building notification forms, and we're still using the same form because we don't have a better option just now. But we are not collecting the fee. So the first thing I'm going to say, and I actually already did a draft of this, and it was presented months ago, and we got the hard stop because this is when we started looking at the fact that the building notification form, it was erroneously adopted. So I'd like to redraft that form in a way that is very clear, streamlined, and also clicks the boxes for the regulations we have. So it would not necessarily just be, oh, you're gonna do $5,000, put a $5,000 porch on your house. It might also be that subdivision checklist that the planning board sent out. So saying, hey, if you're doing this, you need to check in with the planning board. You're doing this, you don't have to check in with the planning board. You just have to, so like if this then kind of flow chart. The other thing is that I'll work with Emily to look into what we have to do to repeal the building notification form, since it's not really a thing right now, so that's probably gonna have to go through town meeting, and I'll report back to what I find out about that. But in the meantime, it seems like the thing to do is, what I'm gonna recommend to the board, but not for a motion tonight, is that we identify in the past 3 years, because that's the statute of limitations for this, in the past 3 years, who is submitted that $100 fee, and we contact them and offer to refund it. And it'll be a blanket notice, and if you want that fee refunded, you need to respond to us in writing. An email's fine, a letter's fine, a postcard's fine, by X date. That money is gonna have to come out of our operating budget. It's a bottom line budget. We can pull it from where we need to. This should have been dealt with years ago, and it wasn't. And we've been going along in a way that's not been, at least not ethical, by taking this money in a way that the RSA did not intend it to be taken. So what I'm going to also propose is that I'm going to work with Michaela to come up with a solid number. What is that number in dollars for the past 3 years? What are we going to be on the hook for to reimburse? And how many forms does that represent? And I'll come back with you and we can continue the discussion then. But we're in a precarious position, and this should have been dealt with a long time ago, and it hasn't been.
Can we just not get back the money and then just go case by case when people come in complaining and bitching?
That's another way we can do it. Yeah. So,
So you'll get back to us with
so I'm going to get back to
how
you with
much money you're
numbers. I'm going to
talking
get
about.
back to you with a draft
Yep.
of the revised building notification form that's going to get us from now until town meeting, when we'll repeal the junk one, and depending on where all this falls out, maybe we have to put on the warrant something to replace it. I don't know that yet, until we do more research. So that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that like this is a completely voluntary, until this town wants to get on board with adopting zoning and building codes, this form is completely voluntary. I mean, and since learning this, we've been noting this in our office as far as like, because we get mostly out of towners moving to town thinking that they need to build, pull a permit. And we've just explained that there's no fee right now, and we ask that you fill out this form. It's basically for assessing purposes,
But that being said, the building notification form, Emily's correct. We can, however, for the codes we have, for the regulations and the ordinances we have, groundwater protection, floodplain, subdivision, whatever, we have the statutory ability to hire a code enforcement officer for those things and charge a fee and say, if you are doing X, Y, and Z, which falls under subdivision, you must complete this form, go to the planning board, whatever. Like it'll say, if you're doing this, then you must do this. And we can charge a fee for that because we have an enforcement person. The fee is supposed to be connected to the enforcement. So that we can do. Building notification, the assessing, that's a separate thing. But I don't want us to conflate the two.
No.
So the assessing form can still be used voluntarily.
yeah. So you're right. Like the position that we're talking about hiring and enforcing, the regulations we already have in place would still need to be amended at town meeting.
Right.
The ordinances would need to be amended to require notice.
Right.
Require notification. Basically, you're telling people, hey, if you're building in a floodplain, if you're subdividing, if you're building two or more of anything on your property and it falls within the subdivision regulations, you are required to notify our town office by filling out this form, which then triggers the enforcement officer to regulate that, right? So either way, it's like, so if we go that route, or we want to talk about adopting zoning and building codes, either way it's at town meeting. And until then, we could still accept a voluntary form. You as the assessing officials for this town are responsible. It's your duty to properly value and assess this town. So if you find out, whether by someone fills out a voluntary form or a neighbor tells you so-and-so's building a house on that lot, it's our responsibility to assess it for tax purposes. So there's nothing wrong with accepting the form. We can't charge for the form.
Right.
And I do think it's the right thing to do to go back at least the last 3 years and say, hey, if and we still have to figure that out with our attorney, like what's the best with finance, what's the best way to go about doing this? Do you kind of publicly broadcast it, give a deadline, leave it open-ended, like you're allowed to, come request a refund, or do we notify all the individuals who have submitted one?
What year was this form put in place?
2004. 2004. I think it was amended in 2007, which is when they assigned the fee to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's when it became illegal.
No, that was the insult to injury. That it was adopted under the wrong RSA.
So
it was a non-starter. Yeah. So anyway, this is a lot to process.
Yeah, it is.
I'll be bringing you pieces, and then we can get into pieces looking at something.
Cool. How about you, Emery?
Please say nothing.
It was warm outside today.
Oh, it sure was.
Richard said it was 104. Was that right?
I don't know.
Maybe
Maybe it's the sun.
I saw a 99.
Yeah, it was I'd rather heat than cold personally though, so I'll take it. Cold weather.
All right.
So nothing.
Is there gonna be any more public comment?
Right now.
Carl, I do have a question. There's a water meter at the townhouse.
Yeah.
That's been there unplugged
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
Is that something that you could come and get, or I could
Well, so
off somewhere and
there's a
reuse
meter,
that?
there's a meter on this building and the library
Library.
and the townhouse. What I heard at the meeting last night was, that's not the model that they want to use. So they might remove those.
Okay,
And-
because it's unplugged and
Yeah,
downstairs.
yeah.
Because there was a lot of issues with that, because it would shut the water off.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
really?
Yeah, it was not
Yeah.
cool for an
So,
event and have the water.
that one will be replaced.
Okay,
Hopefully one that works well.
Yeah.
well, they just took the little monitors off the floor, and if there was a lot of water being run,
Mm-hmm.
they thought
There was a
It was
leak.
a
there was a
leak.
leak, so
Oh.
it would shut the water off.
That makes sense. A little too sensitive.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was not,
Yeah.
not
They're gonna,
friendly.
they'll replace those.
The other thing is, what was the amount for the HED contract? You didn't say.
It
No,
wasn't a
it's-
contract.
It's
It
an
is-
hourly.
It's an hourly rate.
Hourly?
Right.
Okay, there wasn't a set amount.
No, I know how much money we kind of have, that
Mhm.
it's sort of a maximum.
Okay,
We have 478,000 remaining,
yep,
but that would include paying for everything, building whatever we build, paying design fees, whatever.
yep. Is the town gonna take a look at these new drawings? I mean, it's been a lot of different drawings, or is it
The-
just,
The drawing we have is the one that's current, that Sanborn Head did recently,
That's-
so that's the latest.
okay. And when did the board vote to stop accepting the money for the building notification?
No, basically, as soon as I found out that it was not above board to do that, I just made the decision for our office to
And the
stop.
attorney told us to,
Okay.
but it didn't need a board vote
Guess
because
I'll get
it
my $100
was
back.
It's been illegal for a long
for a long
time.
time.
He's in for $100.
We're not giving it back to you.
No, okay.
You're doing a great job trying to do the due diligence on the project up there. Now, I've had dealings with Morton Buildings myself, and they provide, as Emery had stated from what he observed and what he thought he observed is, that company does provide the specifications for the pad and the foundation or the footing that their buildings go on, okay? Now, a wood structure, I don't know if there are companies that when they go do that, they just, so as far as engineering goes, like you said, that engineering's provided for those buildings that come, you know, they're standard size buildings, so it saves you a ton of money. And I'm just curious, so where are you thinking that you want that building to go?
Ideally would have gone on part of the slab where the cans are now.
Down below?
No.
Where the
Oh.
on the slab
Recycling.
where the
Where the
recycling cans
recycling
are.
is, in the
Okay.
middle there.
But it turns out there is no footing under the slab. So one of my first questions to HEB is there any way we can use this slab? But I think they've already told us no. It's if you don't want to put a building on a slab that doesn't have a footing, it's just a slab. So in that case, you put it where the brush pile is.
Because I thought, when I looked at it, where you have the 30-yard dumpsters for the construction, the steel, and I thought that's what you wanted to cover.
That's what we were talking about originally, was that.
Because I understood that whenever it rains or snows and they take those away, you're paying for all that weather
It's
that
one of
gets
the-
in there.
Yeah, covering the C&D was something we talked about over a year ago. And if at the end of the project, if there's money left over, that's one of those things we would consider.
So again, if I can just throw it out there, you've seen them, they use them at the DPWs before they started building wooden structures, salt sheds,
Yep.
right? The canvas, and I don't know if you've had any experience with them, you know, the big white tents that they would put out? Because I worked for a guy, he had one in his yard, and it worked great. And if you get a tear in it or something, they're easily fixable, they last a long time, and like it's a fraction of the cost. Just to keep the weather out of your dumpsters, you know, from that concrete foundation, right down over the other side of the, maybe something like that.
I know Holman Rental put a big hoop building up when they built the new rental shop. I want to say that that's not even on a foundation, it's just on like
interlocking,
Yeah.
blocks.
It's like Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like
Yeah.
secured
Right,
to.
exactly.
Ashland has,
But I think,
Ashland's
I don't know,
up there.
that could be 60 by 100 for all I know. I have no idea what the dimensions are off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I want to say that, geez, they've probably been there 8 or 10 years now. And that was like 65,000 then,
Yeah.
as I remember.
The one at the Ashland transfer station is 30 by 60, something like that. It cost $100,000.
Yeah.
So even that's not cheap.
And one of the
Yeah.
problems, Mark, with that, those C&D and the metal containers is that we also have to pull the main MSW cans straight behind them. So,
Right.
and we have to pull the cans that are there out to be
Well,
able
I
to
see,
truck
I
them.
was saying for, in that situation there, is that you have it, it's just open-ended. One end goes up against the current building and the other end's all open. And
Just
then
have a big giant one that runs
just
all
a
the way.
big tube,
Yeah.
that's it, just to get the water away from everything.
And I just don't know where we'd anchor it down lower along that concrete wall. I'm
Because
with
you
you.
get cans going in
But
two
because
directions.
that lower area is a big movement area.
Right, yeah,
That's what I haven't
Yeah.
been able to
yeah.
figure out. But
And then just real quick, so, it's not zoning, what do you call it,
Subdivision rules.
subdivision rules and regulations, can you like give me the quick, what is that? Like, is it, like, what do you do, is that like, designating the square footage of buildings that can be on acreage of land, is that what it is?
There's no square footage, it's more about, well, we've got like a 40-page subdivision regulation document that the planning board is responsible for. So, and they just revamped it. So if you have a piece of land that you want to divide.
Like a Bruce Robinson piece of land, Chicorowa Woods?
Yep, so that's one example.
Right.
But it could be that you own a piece of land and you've got 2 kids and you want to split it in half and give half to each kid. That's a simple subdivision.
Right.
Chicorowa Woods is a more complex subdivision because it's got whatever else.
You mean Meadows?
Chicorowa Woods was earlier in the conversation, Chicorowa Meadows. So those are the things people most often think about when they think of subdivision. It's
Right.
like you're taking a piece of land, you're cutting it into separate lots. And the regulations define pretty specifically that it's separated for sale, separate ownership, condominium, and then it gets into rentals too. So if you're putting a campground on your land, that falls under the subdivision rules. If you are if you've got a piece of land and you're just keeping the land as one lot, but you put 12 cottages on it that you're going to use for short-term rental, that falls under the subdivision rules. And so the idea of the subdivision rules is that you're looking at land use that is taking some designated piece of land and you're trying to increase the use on it. So if you just have your house, average 2-bedroom house on this piece of land and you've got a septic and a well, that's pretty simple, right? But once you put 4 houses on it, you've got to make sure you've got room for the septic and well, and it's got to be based on the soil. In Tamworth, we use the slope and soils for determining things like that, as opposed to some towns have a specified like 2-acre minimum, 5-acre minimum. We don't have that. We can give somebody a very small lot size in a subdivision if the slope and soils will handle it.
Tamworth goes off the state guidelines for septic and well septic.
Yeah.
Right, so, because one of
We
my
don't have anything
questions,
above and beyond.
so when I had my house built, we dug a tank out of the ground,
Yeah.
and then, hooked up with the state, because who I worked with, everything's above board. And then you'd see some other stuff going on, like you said, a property that has trailers on it, you have nobody that goes and at least makes sure that they're following state regulation. It's not like you need town zoning, but like the guy that I had build mine, who Melanie knows, he follows all the state regulations.
Yeah.
But if their people aren't, my concern, if they wire their own house and it burns down, that's on them, but God help if the fire department doesn't get hurt, but, but as far as like leaching
Yeah, exactly.
of waste,
Yeah.
that's the big, you know,
And we find out and we check into it, but sometimes we don't find out.
right, exactly.
Because it's nobody's job to find out.
Right, yeah.
It's usually you get lucky, you notice it.
Yeah, and I will say that building notification form up until now has been our only mechanism to see.
To know what's going on.
Yeah, so our office's rule of thumb was, 2 of anything on this. So if you're building 2 homes, if you're building even 2 driveways, 2 whatever, we always made a copy of it and put it in the planning board's inbox, because then it was on them to follow up with the person
Yeah.
to see if they needed to go through subdivision regulations. But, you know,
And a very simple thing for the town as far as like well and septic setback would be if we know about something, just to turn it over to DES.
Right.
Because then they're gonna.
Oh, you don't wanna have.
That's their
Yeah,
job.
I mean, if they don't have a.
Oh, no, I know, but if you get them on your tail, forget about it.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be the
Save it up.
simple.
Yeah,
You know,
oh, yeah, it would be
we have
simple.
complaints,
Yeah, I see this, you don't wanna take care, okay.
Yeah.
Just call the number.
Okay, any other public comment?
No, just curious.
We're gonna go to the signature 24.
So are we?
Signature file.
this
Thought we were gonna go to the signature file.
on the abatement.
This
is,
Oh,
yeah,
oh, yeah. No, this is right. He assessed it too high.
Oh, that's the abatement, okay.
Yeah.
The assessment.
I make a motion to approve the public and non-public minutes from June 10th and the public and non-public minutes for June 16th.
Are you on this?
Second.
Okay.
Roll call vote.
You said abstains?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I make a motion to approve the abatement for map 407, lot 113 for $974.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
And by the way, this is one of the properties that we just denied the conservation restriction on at Chicago Lake. But they appealed the assessment and we agreed with it. So we actually reduced their assessment but denied their conservation restriction. I make a motion to approve the intent to cut for map 202, lot 70, access
Okay, that's-
Fairgrounds Road.
Second.
I thought you were gonna do both at the same time.
Oh, I should have. Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
And I make a motion to approve the intent to cut from map 408, lot 65 and lot 63, access Washington Town.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Make a motion to appoint, or approve the deputy forest fire warden appointment form for Dana Costello.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
Make a motion to approve the driveway permit application for map 406, lot 61, sublot 1, logging access road on Old Mail Road.
Second.
Roll call vote.
You say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I make a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $143,533.30.
Second.
That's $70,565 to Cobalt Construction, $12,150 for the recreation vans that they're using for summer enrichment, and $14,000 for NHRS. Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
There, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I make a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $92,991.23.
Second.
Library payment of $58,769. And North Star Fireworks, $7,500. Roll call vote.
Did you say yes?
Bear, yes.
Schaefer, yes.
Prentice, yes.
Roberts, yes.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Holy smokes, man.
Can I have one of those trail books that he gave you?
Yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
It's a nice book.
So those are still for you?
Yeah, I add it to the pile.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. That was nice to have an audience.
Appreciate it. You had a big audience
I
tonight.
know, it was good though. Felt, like,
Like things were happening.
yeah, it's nice.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
Pass it down to Rich.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, I've signed it, now they're back to you.
Okay, but I'm done.
So these just, and then when they're done, they go.
Okay, oh, that's too far.
Oh my God, Ed, it was awful.
You can watch my video, but I didn't capture it.
No,
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'll just-
Because
so you-
I had to end it, so, like, that was awful.
You don't really expect that to happen.
Yeah, I'd heard of that, but never seen it.
Oh my God, I'll never unsee it.
It's the exact same one that
Probably
popped
the
up,
same
what,
guy.
2 years ago?
Did you get
Oh, really?
the number for him?
No.
I wish.
Did you have the Zoom being recorded at that point?
No, I didn't. I forgot to. No.
Well,
Just
next
an AI
time.
bot anyway.
It's like every 2 years.
I did, yeah.
I think this